Hello there, this is the starter guide for multiclassing characters in Baldur's Gate Enhanced Edition. Before we go on into a specific starter guide on multiclassing, I'd like to chat about what the difference is between multiclassing and dual classing. Dual classing is something that only humans are capable of doing in Baldur's Gate Enhanced Edition. It has a character start as one class for a few levels, and then if they meet the requirements of another class, they can switch to that second class. They will eventually get the benefits of both classes once a certain level of experience is reached with the second class. I'll have an entire video about dual classing in a few days and how to use it and some really cool options you can do with it. However, that will come in the future. Another benefit to dual classing is that they can use particular kits as their initial class, and then they can gain the benefits of those kits when they're going into another class at the level when they would be returning to the initial class. So I know that there's going to be people commenting about which multi-class or dual class combinations can really be effective as far as using kits goes, but that's not exactly what this series is going to be about. This is just about to be about multiclassing. Multiclassing doesn't have kits as part of it. When a character multiclasses, first off, they have to be non-human, so they can be elf, dwarf, half-elf, halfling, gnome, or half-orc. It has them start with both levels at level 1, and both classes gain experience simultaneously throughout the entire game. They immediately can perform most of the spells or the skills from both classes, and they have many of the same allowances from both of those classes. Oftentimes with a few compromises between those classes. As an example, the big one that we're going to talk about today are multi-class fighters. And one of the big things that they compromise on is their hit points, or their HP. Normally, a fighter would get 1d10 HP per level, plus their constitution modifier. But multi-classing fighters, you're going to get half of that amount. So instead of 1d10, it's going to be 1d10 divided by 2. So just keep that in mind, that there are some compromises that occur, and we'll go into what some more of those compromises are as we're going into multi-classes. At this point, we can go ahead and go into the benefits of multi-classing with a fighter as one of the classes. I did mention that they won't get the 1d10 HP per level, but they're going to be so they will be less, I guess, less tough at earlier levels than a base fighter. But these multi-class fighters are going to have more HP than single class characters without a fighter component. So you're gonna get the benefits of being able to go into the front line. Other areas where they get those benefits is that they can wear any armor, they can wear helmets, and they can wear shields. They, in most cases, can use any weapons with their class. There are going to be two exceptions to this, and we'll go into that in a little bit. They can train in any fighting style. However, they can't gain any more than 2 points in any weapon proficiencies without mods. With mods, you can adjust this and you can add more. I think that taps into the pen and paper modifications, but in the base game, you can't get any more than specialized or putting 2 points into any of those weapon proficiencies. So they're not going to be hitting quite as hard as base fighters can, but they can do more damage than other classes, considering that they get more points into weapons. This can make fighter multi-classers potentially tougher and more versatile in their weapon choices. Now let's go into the specifics. First, we have Fighter Thieves. Fighter Thieves combine a lot of the physical damage with the skills needed to be successful. These characters can use their thieving skills as they are as long as they're wearing no armor that's heavier than wearing leather or studded leather armor on their chests. Fighter Thieves Fighter Thieves can stick around in combat for a little bit longer, so investing in stealth skills, using backstab to start off the combat, can make combat relatively quick if they get a good backstab. But if their backstab is for some reason not successful, then the Fighter Thief can land a few more blows before needing to back off and letting other tanks take those blows. So the Fighter Thief has a bit of survivability in combat, especially with the fact that they can wear helmets and in essence get immunity to the nasty effects from critical hits. I like Fighter Thieves for 3 big reasons. First is that they can solo decently well as long as you keep your distance and have decent stats. The second, and a nice caveat to the fact that they can solo, is that they can actually level up relatively quickly because they take advantage of the Thieves' experience tables. So the way that leveling occurs with a multi-class character is experience points goes into both levels simultaneously. If your character gets a 10 experience points, 5 are going towards the fighter levels and 5 are going towards the thief levels. Okay, so it will take twice as long to level up. But the nice thing is that thieves already have a very low number they need to hit between levels. So low number of experience points they need to hit. So in essence, they will level up a bit quicker than other classes will. So a fighter thief, when the fighter gets to, I guess, the second level of fighter, by that point the thief should already have a level in thieving, or have 2 levels in thieving already. So that makes them that gives them a little more HP. It also adds to their saves and it also adds to their thieving skills. So it can be pretty good. And the third reason why is equipment use. So your character doesn't always need to be wearing leather armor. You can have your fighter thief wear full plate mail, and then when it's time to do picking pockets or finding traps, just have them take off the armor, use their thieving skills, and then pop it right back on when they need to jump back into combat or if you're going through a dangerous situation. If you're happy and secure in your fighting levels, then you can find a nice set of magical leather armor, or there are very powerful leather armor sets in Baldur's Gate 2 and Shadows of Amn, and then they can backstab to their life's desire. So at the high levels, they can also have the advantage of the use any item ability in order to use equipment that's exclusively used for like paladins or bards or monks or anything like that. So fighter thieves have a lot of versatility as long as you don't mind not casting spells. But if we're going to talk about spells, let's talk about the other 3 combinations for fighters for multiclassing. Fighter clerics gain divine spells such as buffs and control abilities. Since clerics can wear any armor, helmets, or shields, they have similar defenses to what a fighter has. However, with the additional buffs that they get at the start, from the start of the game, through casting spells, they can be a little more defensive than a fighter can, or any other warrior that has access to divine spells later on in the game, such as the paladin or the ranger. So these characters can be some of the best frontline tanks in the game with these buffs that specifically help out damage and healing. The downside to fighter clerics is that they are restricted in using weapons that only clerics can use. This is primarily going to be blunted weapons or slings. This has some good options as long as you're okay with a very limited pool for two-handed weapons. The only two-handed weapon that a fighter cleric can use are quarterstaves. Now, two-handed weapons, the jury's out on whether it's worth taking two-handed weapons. There's a lot of veterans of the game that say it's not worth it. But if you want to take two-handed weapons, fighter clerics may not be a good choice for you. You might want to go with something else that has more versatile options. With that being said, there are still some great one-handed options that fighter clerics can use. They can use flails, they can use hammers, they can use maces, they can use clubs, and they can use slings. So I think with the role of the fighter cleric, you'll want to have them have a shield, as much armor, and a helmet, as it basically raise up the AC as much as possible. Yeah, honestly, I wouldn't say that the weapon restriction is too much of a downside. Fighter clerics find themselves maybe not being a phenomenal frontline tanker like a barbarian or a dwarven defender, but they can step up after they do a bit of buffing or if they do some control spells cast in combat. So I think that that's pretty nifty, and they have a role within the party that makes them very powerful. Fighter mages get arcane spell casting to take the massive list of available spells to their available actions in or out of combat. If you want to use your fighter mage as an offensive caster with a sword, a shield, and a helmet, you could totally do that. If you want your fighter mage to be defensive and to buff themselves or buff the party, and then charging in and knocking around opponents with that sword and shield, you could totally do that. If you want a solo with summons, knock, or spells that do either area of effect damage or massive control spells, you can do that. You have a vast amount of versatility as long as you don't mind your fighter mage being without armor when they're casting their spells. They cannot cast arcane spells wearing armor at all. Fighter mages do have a major downside, is that they take a very long time to get up to power. Fighters take 2,000 experience points, and mages take 2,500 experience points just to get up to level 2 respectively. That means that a fighter mage would need to get 4,000 experience points to get a little bit of HP and a THAC0 boost that's based on level 2. And then on top of that, an additional 1,000 XP to get one more level 1 spell. With that said, if I've shown anything with my recent run-throughs, getting XP early in the game isn't actually too difficult to do if you're willing to solo. A fighter mage with a ranged weapon can take out a few high-experience melee opponents by themselves fairly easily without needing offensive spells. So, speaking of which, I envision a good way to start off a fighter mage is to play them as a distance fighter first, putting either 1 or 2 points in either crossbows or longbows, or short bows or slings if you prefer. Then cast Find Familiar to boost up your HP, right? You basically cast the spell, you chat with your familiar, put them in your pack. That's a big amount of HP that you get to put right away into your character. Then you're going to grab some weapons and armor. And note, I said armor here. You're not casting offensive spells at this early stage of the game. What you're going to do is you're going to use distance attacks, and you're going to basically take out those high experience targets. And then once you get spells that let you tank, such as Mirror Image, Blur, Haste, and eventually Stone Skin, then you can have your fighter mage charge in without any issues. Ultimately, the fighter mage is a very powerful class that allows a lot of versatility. Finally, there's fighter druids. Fighter druids are similar to fighter clerics. They're restricted to druid weapons, and they use druid spells and abilities. The biggest difference here is the shape-shifting abilities that the fighter druid would get. Early on, this is not super useful. Turning into a bear or a wolf is not great. But the high-level shape-shifting abilities, such as Earth Elemental shape-shifting, can make a fighter druid essentially immune to physical damage if you use other HLA abilities, or HLAs. And having really beefy HP. This really opens up a nice amount of equipment and armor that isn't available to druids. So tossing on that fighter bit is a good component to add to a druid. I would say that the fighter druid gets a little more out of the multi-class combo than the fighter cleric does, but both of them are good choices. So, in short, players can join a class with a fighter in order to do a little more physical damage, and they get a benefit of using helmets and shields, which adds to their survivability. I hope you enjoyed my starter guide. Please check out the other content on the channel and subscribe if you like what I do. That'll be it for today. Take care and good luck. We're all counting on you.